Ambassador Zektar stood before the massive viewing screen on the bridge of the Council flagship Eternal Dominion. His 4 eyes tracked the burning planet below as orange flames danced across what had once been blue oceans. The third planet of this small solar system was dying, just as the Galactic Council had planned. "The human homeworld is finished," announced Admiral Vorthak, his voice carrying satisfaction through the bridge's universal translator. "All major cities have been glassed. Their military installations are nothing but craters. The primitive species that called this place Earth will trouble the galaxy no more." Zektar nodded his massive head in approval. The humans had been stubborn creatures, refusing to accept their place in the galactic order. When they rejected the Council's generous offer to become a client species, their fate was sealed. No world could stand against the combined might of 47 advanced civilizations. "Sir," called Communications Officer Yilneth from her station, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It appears to be from their remaining diplomatic facility." "Put it through," Zektar ordered. He wanted to hear their final words of surrender. It would make an excellent recording for the Council archives, showing other primitive species what happened when they refused to submit. The main screen flickered, and a human face appeared. The creature looked remarkably calm for someone whose world was burning around him. Ambassador David Harrison sat behind what appeared to be a simple metal desk. Behind him, Zektar could see damaged walls and emergency lighting casting harsh shadows. "Greetings, members of the Galactic Council," Harrison began, his voice steady and clear. "I am Ambassador David Harrison, speaking on behalf of the human species. I want to thank you for this opportunity to address you one final time." Several alien officers on the bridge laughed. The audacity of these creatures never ceased to amaze them. Even in defeat, they maintained their arrogance. Harrison continued speaking as if he could not hear their laughter. "For 3 years, we attempted to find a peaceful solution to our differences. We offered trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and technology sharing. We proposed joint exploration missions and scientific collaboration. We even offered to limit our expansion to accommodate your concerns about territorial boundaries. All reasonable offers," Harrison said, his expression never changing. "We believed that rational beings could find common ground. We thought that civilized species could resolve conflicts without violence. We were, it seems, mistaken about your nature." Admiral Vorthak snorted in amusement. "The creature still does not understand its position. Shall I order the communication cut?" "No," Zektar replied, genuinely curious about what the human would say next. "Let it finish its surrender speech." On the screen, Harrison leaned forward slightly. "You see, we humans have a saying, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. While our diplomats were offering you peace, our strategists were planning for the possibility that you might choose war instead." The ambassador reached into his desk and withdrew a simple data pad. "I have here the locations of 347 human colonies that you do not know exist. I have the coordinates of 52 deep space installations that have been watching your movements for the past decade. I have the names and positions of over 2,000 human agents currently living within your various civilizations." The laughter on the bridge died away. Several officers exchanged nervous glances. Harrison looked directly into the camera, and for the first time, Zektar noticed something disturbing in the human's eyes. It was not fear or desperation. It was something much colder. "For 3 years, we tried to convince you that peace was in everyone's best interest," Harrison said. "We showed you our art, our music, our literature. We shared our dreams of exploration and discovery. We demonstrated our capacity for cooperation and friendship. We tried to prove that the galaxy was large enough for all of us." The ambassador set down the datapad and folded his hands. "You chose to see these gestures as weakness. You interpreted our desire for peace as an inability to wage war. You convinced yourselves that because we formed emotional attachments and showed mercy to our enemies, we would be easy to defeat." Outside the flagship, the planet Earth continued to burn, but somehow the sight no longer filled Zektar with the same satisfaction. "What you failed to understand," Harrison continued, "is that peace requires strength. A species cannot choose to be peaceful unless it is also capable of being dangerous. We offered you our friendship because we were strong enough to destroy you. We pursued diplomacy because we were confident enough in our abilities to give negotiation a chance." The human stood up from behind his desk. The camera followed him as he walked to a window. Through the transparent aluminum, The burning city outside was clearly visible. Smoke and flames reached toward the sky like grasping fingers. "You have destroyed our homeworld," Harrison said, his voice still calm and measured. "You have killed 7 billion innocent people who wanted nothing more than to live in peace. You have chosen to interpret our restraint as weakness and our mercy as cowardice." He turned back to face the camera directly. "This was your choice, not ours. Remember that in the days to come?" Harrison returned to his desk and picked up the datapad again. "I am now transmitting the coordinates of a small research station in the Proxima Centauri system. You will find it abandoned, but the computers there contain detailed files on every council species. We know your weaknesses, your fears, your military capabilities, and your technological limitations. We have been studying you for much longer than you have been studying us." Admiral Vorthak was no longer smiling. "Cut the transmission," he ordered. "No," Zektar said quietly. "Let him finish." Harrison placed the datapad back on the desk. "We are not surrendering, council members. We are simply informing you that your education is about to begin. You wanted to see what humans are capable of when we stop trying to be civilized. You wanted to witness our true nature when we abandon our commitment to peace." The ambassador smiled for the first time during the transmission. It was not a pleasant expression. "You destroyed our world because you thought we were weak. You killed our families because you believed we were helpless. You ended our attempt at peaceful coexistence because you were convinced that we lacked the will to fight back." Harrison stood up again and straightened his jacket. Behind him, explosions could be heard growing closer. The emergency lighting flickered as the building shook. "We tried peace," he said simply. "We offered you every opportunity to choose a different path. We gave you 3 years to prove that you were capable of wisdom. Instead, you chose to demonstrate that the only language you understand is violence." The human walked closer to the camera until his face filled the entire screen. "Very well. We will speak to you in the only language you seem to comprehend. But understand this. We are much more fluent in that language than you realize." Harrison stepped back and gave a formal bow. "This is Earth's final diplomatic communication to the Galactic Council. The next time you hear from humanity, we will not be asking for peace. We will be delivering justice." The transmission cut to static just as a massive explosion shook the flagship. For several long moments, the bridge was completely silent. "Sir," Communications Officer Yilnith finally said, her voice uncertain, "what should I do with the coordinates they transmitted?" Zektar stared at the empty screen for a long time before answering. Something about the human's calm confidence had disturbed him deeply. "Forward them to Intelligence Division. Have them investigate immediately." As the flagship began its journey away from the burning planet, none of the council members noticed the small, dark objects that had been waiting in the asteroid belt beyond scanner range, objects that were already beginning to move toward distant stars. The war was about to begin. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the deep space vessel Retribution, watching the last light from Earth's dying sun fade into the void. The quantum communication array had gone silent 6 hours ago, confirming what every human in the galaxy already knew. Their homeworld was gone. Around her, the bridge crew worked in focused silence. These were not the humans the Galactic Council had met in diplomatic chambers. These were the descendants of colonists who had left Earth generations ago, hardened by life in the deep void and trained for this exact moment. "Status report," Chen ordered. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his station. "All sleeper cells have confirmed activation, Captain. The Kepler colonies are moving to Phase 2 operations. The Tau Ceti research stations have begun surveillance protocols. Deep Space Command estimates we have assets in over 400 systems." Chen nodded. The plan had taken decades to implement. While Earth's diplomats had been offering peace treaties and trade agreements, humanity's real leaders had been quietly spreading across the galaxy like seeds on the wind. Every refugee ship that fled human space carried more than frightened civilians. Every research vessel that requested permission to study distant stars carried more than scientists. "The Council made a critical error," Chen said to her assembled officers. "They assumed Earth was our only world because that's what we let them believe. They thought our diplomats represented our full capabilities because we never showed them anything else. The tactical display showed the true scope of human expansion. Red dots marked known human colonies that the Council had identified and would likely target. But green dots, far more numerous, showed the hidden settlements that had been established in secret over the past 50 years. Mining operations in asteroid fields, research stations in empty space between stars, and entire cities built inside dead moons. "Ma'am," called Ensign Park from the communication station. "We're receiving the awakening signal from Sector 7. The Vega Colonial Defense Force is requesting orders. Tell them to begin Phase 3 operations," Chen replied. Full operational autonomy is now in effect. The Vega colonies had been established by miners and engineers who had volunteered for one-way missions to the edge of Council space. For 20 years, they had pretended to be simple workers extracting rare metals from barren worlds. In reality, they had been constructing the most advanced military production facilities humanity had ever built. Chen walked to the star chart display and studied the tactical situation. The Council's victory fleet was still celebrating around Earth's burning corpse, completely unaware that they had just awakened something far more dangerous than they could imagine. "The Council studied our culture for 3 years," she said to her officers. "They read our history books and analyzed our art. They concluded that we were too emotional and too attached to peace to be effective warriors. They were right about one thing: we do value peace, but they failed to understand what that truly means." She pointed to a cluster of stars on the display. "A species that truly values peace must be capable of protecting it. We spent centuries learning how to wage war precisely so that we could choose not to. The Council forced us to abandon that choice." The communication array came alive with coded transmissions from across the galaxy. Human cells that had been dormant for decades were suddenly active, reporting their status and requesting instructions. The scope of the network was staggering. Humans had infiltrated Council society at every level, from maintenance workers on orbital stations to cultural attachés in government buildings. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez said, his voice carrying a note of amazement, "Deep Intelligence is reporting successful penetration of Council command networks. We have access to their fleet movements, supply schedules, and communication protocols." Chen smiled grimly. "Of course we do. Agent Harrison wasn't exaggerating when he said we'd been studying them. Every cultural exchange was an intelligence operation. Every trade negotiation was a reconnaissance mission. Every diplomatic dinner party was an opportunity to plant surveillance devices." The tactical officer looked up from his console. "Ma'am, we're detecting movement in the outer system. It appears to be a Council patrol squadron investigating the coordinates that Earth transmitted." "Perfect," Chen said. "Signal the Proxima base commander. Tell him to let them find what we want them to find." The Proxima Centauri research station had been abandoned months ago, but its computers contained carefully prepared information designed to confuse and misdirect Council forces. False data about human capabilities, fake intelligence about colony locations, and fabricated weakness assessments that would lead the aliens to make critical strategic errors. Chen turned to address her full bridge crew. "The Council believes they have eliminated humanity because they destroyed our most visible world. They think they're hunting the survivors of a broken species. They have no idea that they've just declared war on a civilization that has been preparing for this moment for over 50 years. She activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. As of today, the human species is officially at war with the Galactic Council. Our homeworld is gone, but our people live on in hundreds of hidden colonies across the galaxy. Our mission is no longer exploration or diplomacy. Our mission is justice." The crew listened in attentive silence as their captain continued. "The Council chose to interpret our peaceful nature as weakness. They decided that our capacity for mercy meant we lacked the ability to fight. They will learn that they were wrong about both assumptions." Chen paused, looking out at the stars through the observation windows. "We tried to share the galaxy with them. We offered friendship, cooperation, and mutual respect. They responded with genocide. From this moment forward, every human ship, every human colony, and every human agent operates under a single directive: make them understand the price of their choice." The quantum communicator crackled with an incoming transmission from the Wolf 359 sector. Captain Martinez of the deep space cruiser Vengeance reported that his ship was in position near the Council's main supply route between the Rigel and Vega systems. "All captains, this is Admiral Chen," she said, accepting her new rank that had been automatically activated by Earth's destruction. "Operation Reckoning is now in effect. You have full authorization to engage Council forces on site. Remember, we are not raiders or terrorists. We are the legitimate military force of a sovereign species defending itself against genocide." The response was immediate. Across dozens of star systems, Human ships that had been hiding in the deep void began moving toward their targets. These were not the converted civilian vessels that the Council expected refugees to use. These were purpose-built warships constructed in secret shipyards and equipped with weapons designed specifically to counter Council technology. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving confirmation from all sectors. The network is fully operational. Every cell has confirmed receipt of targeting data and rules of engagement." Chen nodded with satisfaction. The Council had spent 3 years studying humanity's diplomatic corps and trade representatives. They had concluded that humans were predictable, emotional, and bound by rigid moral codes that would prevent them from taking decisive military action. They were about to discover how wrong they had been. "Helm, set course for the Arcturus station," Chen ordered. "It's time to introduce the Council to the humans they never met, the ones who weren't interested in peace negotiations." As the Retribution turned toward its target, Admiral Chen looked one last time at the dying light from Earth's star. The Council had destroyed humanity's cradle, but they had also released humanity from the restraints that had kept them peaceful. The scattered seeds were about to bloom into something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Vorthak stared at the tactical display in growing confusion. 3 more Council colonies had gone silent in the past week, bringing the total to 15 missing worlds. Not destroyed, simply gone quiet as if their entire populations had vanished without a trace. "Still no distress signals?" he asked his communications officer for the 3rd time that hour. "No, sir," Gilnith replied, her voice tense with worry. The last transmission from Mining Colony 447 was a routine status report. Everything appeared normal. Then nothing. Vorthak's forearms gestured in frustration. The Galactic Council's most experienced military commander had faced rebellions, pirate raids, and territorial disputes for over 2 centuries. But this was different. This was something he had never encountered before. "Sir," called the tactical officer, "long-range sensors are detecting the approach of our investigation fleet at the Kepler 442 system. They should reach the mining colony within the hour." "Finally," Vorthak muttered. "Maybe we'll get some answers about what's happening to our outer territories." The investigation fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought-class battleship, more than enough firepower to handle any known threat. If there was some new alien species attacking Council worlds, they would quickly learn the price of challenging galactic civilization. An hour later, the fleet commander's report came through the quantum relay. Captain Zilthak appeared on the communication screen, his expression troubled. "Admiral, we have reached Mining Colony 447. The situation is unusual." "Define unusual." "Captain," Vorthak ordered, "the colony is intact, sir. All buildings, equipment, and infrastructure appear undamaged. But there are no life signs anywhere on the planet. No bodies, no signs of battle, no evidence of violence. The population has simply disappeared." Vorthak leaned forward in his command chair. "Disappeared? 30,000 colonists don't just vanish into space. What do the security recordings show?" Captain Zilthak hesitated. "That's the disturbing part, sir. The last week of security footage has been selectively edited. Whoever did this had access to our security systems and knew exactly how to manipulate them. But they left us one recording, apparently on purpose." "Show me," Vorthak commanded. The screen flickered, and Vorthak found himself looking at the colony's main processing facility. The timestamp showed the footage was from 3 days ago, in the middle of the night shift. Everything appeared normal for several minutes. Then figures began moving through the shadows at the edge of the camera's range. At first, Vorthak thought he was seeing maintenance workers. The figures moved with purpose and coordination, but stayed carefully out of direct view. Then one of them stepped into the light, and Vorthak's blood turned cold. It was a human, but not like any human the Council had encountered before. This one was taller, more muscular, and moved with a predatory grace that spoke of genetic enhancement and military training. The creature wore form-fitting black armor that seemed to absorb light, making it difficult to track even when directly visible. "By the ancient gods," Vorthak whispered. "How many of them are there?" The recording continued, showing more humans emerging from concealment. They moved through the facility like ghosts, systematically disabling security systems and herding the colonist population toward transport ships that had somehow approached the planet without triggering any alarms. What disturbed Vorthak most was the complete lack of resistance. The colonists appeared to be following orders willingly, as if they had been convinced to cooperate rather than forced. There was no violence, no panic, no desperate attempts to escape. "Captain," Vorthak said, his voice hoarse, "how many humans do you estimate were involved in this operation?" "Based on the few clear images we have, sir, I would say no more than 50. They managed to evacuate 30,000 colonists with a force smaller than a single company." The implications were staggering. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that the Council had never imagined. Stealth technology that could fool their sensors, infiltration skills that could penetrate their security systems, and coordination that suggested decades of planning and preparation. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving similar reports from the other missing colonies. In each case, the human forces were vastly outnumbered, but achieved complete success without firing a shot." Vorthak stood up and began pacing around his command center. The humans were supposed to be extinct. Earth was a burning cinder, and their refugee ships had been tracked and catalogued. According to Council intelligence, fewer than 1 million humans remained alive in the entire galaxy. "Get me Intelligence Division," he ordered. "I want to know how we missed this." The head of Council Intelligence, Director Malveth, appeared on screen within minutes. Her expression suggested she had been expecting this call. "Admiral, before you ask, yes, we are aware that our assessment of human capabilities was incomplete. We are currently reviewing all intelligence gathered during the 3-year diplomatic period." "Incomplete?" Vorthak's voice rose to a roar. "You told us they were primitive refugees incapable of organized resistance. Now they're making our colonies disappear like magic tricks." Director Malveth's tentacles writhed in what Vorthak recognized as deep embarrassment. "Admiral, it appears that the humans we encountered during diplomatic negotiations were not representative of their full population. Our cultural analysts now believe we were only meeting with their civilian leadership." "Are you telling me," Vorthak said slowly, "that we spent 3 years negotiating with the wrong humans?" "Not wrong, sir. Incomplete. It appears that human society contains multiple distinct castes or specializations. We met their diplomats, their traders, and their cultural representatives. We never encountered their military leadership or their intelligence operatives." Vorthak sank back into his command chair. The full scope of their error was beginning to become clear. The Council had made first contact with humanity's peaceful face and assumed that was all they possessed. They had negotiated with humans who genuinely wanted peace, never realizing that other humans were simultaneously preparing for war. "Director, I need to know everything about human military capabilities. Real information, not the fairy tales your department has been feeding us. Sir, we're discovering that our information was deliberately manipulated. The humans allowed us to study their civilian population while keeping their military forces completely hidden. Every cultural exchange, every trade mission, every diplomatic meeting was apparently designed to reinforce our misconceptions about their nature." The tactical officer looked up from his console with alarm. "Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from the Rigel sector. The supply convoy to Station 7 has gone missing." Vorthak closed his eyes. A supply convoy included not just cargo ships, but a full escort of military vessels. If the humans could make an entire convoy disappear, they were dealing with a threat far beyond anything the Council had faced before. "How many ships in that convoy?" he asked. 47 vessels, sir, including 2 heavy cruisers and a battle cruiser." The bridge fell silent. Even the most optimistic estimates suggested that all remaining human forces combined couldn't match the firepower of a single Council battle cruiser. Yet somehow they had eliminated an entire convoy without sending so much as a distress signal. "Admiral," Director Malveth said from the communication screen, "there's something else you need to know. We've been analyzing the coordinates that the human ambassador transmitted before Earth's destruction. The research station they directed us to find was clearly meant to be discovered." "What do you mean?" Vorthak asked. "The data we found there was carefully prepared to mislead us. False information about human weaknesses, fake intelligence about their remaining population, fabricated assessments of their technological capabilities. They wanted us to find that station. They wanted us to believe we understood them." Vorthak stared at the tactical display showing the locations of missing colonies and convoys. A pattern was beginning to emerge. The humans weren't striking randomly. They were systematically dismantling the Council's outer defenses and supply lines with surgical precision. "Director," In your professional opinion, how long have the humans been planning this campaign? Malveth's tentacles drooped in defeat. Based on the level of coordination and preparation we're seeing, Admiral, I estimate they've been planning this for at least 50 years, possibly longer. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. The humans had been preparing for war since before first contact. While the Council thought they were negotiating with a primitive species, they had actually been studied, analyzed, and strategically positioned for destruction. Admiral Vorthak looked out at the stars and wondered how many human ships were out there, waiting in the darkness for their next opportunity to strike. The hunters had emerged from hiding, and the Council was learning that they had always been the prey. Commander Thecklin had worked in the Council's central communication hub for 15 years. Every day he processed thousands of messages flowing between the 47 member worlds, coordinating everything from trade shipments to military deployments. He thought he knew every employee in the facility. He was wrong. The maintenance worker who had been cleaning the communication arrays for the past 3 years turned out to be human. The cultural attaché from the Rigel embassy, who often visited to discuss translation protocols, was human. The night shift supervisor who had access to all classified routing codes was human. Thecklin discovered this when they simultaneously revealed themselves during the morning shift change, moving with coordinated precision to take control of the facility's critical systems. Within 10 minutes, they had locked down all communications between Council High, Command in the Outer Territories. Please remain calm, said the woman who had been introduced to him as cultural attaché Valandra 3 years ago. Her disguise technology fell away, revealing human features beneath what had appeared to be authentic Rigel physiology. No one will be harmed if you follow instructions. Thecklin watched in shock as similar scenes played out across dozens of other critical facilities throughout Council space. The humans hadn't just infiltrated their society, they had positioned themselves in every vital system that kept galactic civilization functioning. Admiral Vorthak received the reports from his command ship with growing dread. In a single coordinated strike, the humans had disabled the Council's ability to communicate with their military forces, disrupted their supply network coordination, and taken control of their financial transaction systems. How is this possible? He demanded of his intelligence staff. How did we miss an infiltration operation of this magnitude? Director Malveth appeared on the communication screen, her expression grim. Admiral, we're discovering that the infiltration began during the very first diplomatic contact. Every human cultural exchange student, every trade representative, every technical advisor was apparently a deep cover operative. Are you telling me that every human we've encountered for 3 years was a spy? Not every human, sir, but a significant percentage. They used the diplomatic missions to place agents throughout our infrastructure. While we thought we were teaching them about our culture, they were learning how to destroy us from within. The tactical display showed the scope of the disaster. Communication blackouts were spreading across Council space like a plague. Military units were losing contact with their command structures. Supply convoys were changing course or disappearing entirely, as their routing orders were altered by compromised systems. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission on an emergency frequency. It's from Fleet Captain Chen aboard the human vessel Retribution. Put it through, Vorthak ordered. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the main screen, standing on what was clearly a military bridge surrounded by human officers. She looked nothing like the peaceful diplomats the Council remembered from their negotiations. Admiral Vorthak, Chen said with cold politeness, I believe we need to discuss the current situation. You're supposed to be extinct, Vorthak replied. We destroyed your homeworld. You destroyed one of our worlds, Chen corrected. Earth was our birthplace, not our only home. Your intelligence services apparently never realized how far humanity had spread across the galaxy. Behind Chen, the tactical display showed star charts with hundreds of marked locations. The scope of human expansion was staggering, far beyond anything the Council had imagined. What do you want? Vorthak asked bluntly. Justice, Chen replied simply. You committed genocide against a peaceful population. You rejected every attempt at diplomatic resolution. You chose to interpret our restraint as weakness. Now you're learning the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. The Admiral gestured angrily with all 4 arms. You're holding our communication systems hostage. You're disrupting our trade routes. These are acts of terrorism. Chen's expression didn't change. Admiral, let me help you understand your current situation. We have agents in every major council facility. We have access to your command codes, your supply schedules, your fleet movements, and your strategic planning databases. We know where every one of your ships is located and where they're going next. She paused to let that information sink in. What we're doing now is not terrorism. It's a military campaign conducted with surgical precision to minimize casualties while maximizing strategic impact. If we wanted to engage in terrorism, your communication hub workers would be dead instead of simply detained. Vorthak felt a chill run through his body. How long have you been planning this? Since before we made first contact with the Council, Chen answered honestly. Humanity learned long ago that when you encounter a potentially hostile civilization, you prepare for the worst-case scenario while hoping for the best. We spent 3 years genuinely trying to find a peaceful solution. We also spent those 3 years preparing for the possibility that you would choose violence instead. The communication screen split, showing multiple human commanders from different ships across the galaxy. Each one was reporting successful operations against Council targets. Supply depots captured intact, communication relays disabled without casualties, military installations neutralized through coordination rather than destruction. You're fighting a war without actually fighting, Vorthak realized. We're fighting a war the way humans fight when they're serious about winning, Chen corrected. Your species studies warfare as a matter of overwhelming force and territorial conquest. Humans study warfare as a matter of achieving objectives with maximum efficiency and minimum waste. She gestured to her tactical display. We don't need to destroy your ships, Admiral. We just need to prevent them from coordinating effectively. We don't need to occupy your worlds. We just need to control the infrastructure that keeps them functioning. We don't need to kill your people. We just need them to understand that their government made a terrible mistake. Vorthak looked at his own tactical display and saw the truth of her words. Human forces were systematically dismantling the Council's ability to function as a coordinated military power without engaging in a single direct battle. They were winning a war through intelligence, preparation, and precise execution rather than raw firepower. What are your terms? He asked finally. Unconditional surrender of all Council military forces, Chen replied immediately. Complete withdrawal from all former human territories. Preparations for the destruction of Earth, and the trial of all Council leaders responsible for the genocide decision. Impossible, Vorthak said. The Council will never accept those terms. Chen smiled coldly. Admiral, you seem to think you're negotiating from a position of strength. Let me clarify your actual situation. The communication screen changed to show real-time footage from inside the Council's high command facility. Human operatives moved freely through the corridors, having taken control of the building's security systems. Council leaders sat in their meeting chambers, effectively prisoners in their own government center. Your communication networks are under our control, Chen continued. Your supply lines are disrupted. Your military coordination is compromised. Your government leadership is surrounded. You have exactly 2 choices. Surrender now with minimal casualties, or continue fighting and face complete destruction. Admiral Vorthak stared at the images of his captured colleagues and felt the weight of defeat settling over him. In less than 2 weeks, the humans had reduced the galaxy's most powerful military alliance to a collection of isolated, confused forces stumbling blindly through space. How? He asked quietly. How did your species accomplish this? By being better prepared than you were, Chen answered. By understanding that true strength comes from patience, planning, and precision rather than just superior firepower. By remembering that the goal of war is victory, not violence. She leaned forward slightly. Admiral, your people studied humanity for 3 years and concluded that we were too peaceful to be dangerous. You were right that we prefer peace, but you failed to understand that a species can only choose peace if it's also capable of choosing war. The tactical display updated again, showing human forces moving into position around every major Council world, not to attack, but to establish blockades that would prevent any military response to their ultimatum. You have 24 hours to communicate our terms to your government, Chen said. After that, we stopped being patient. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Vorthak staring at a blank screen and wondering how his species had so completely misjudged their opponents. The predators had revealed the full scope of their web, and the Council was trapped at its center. Ambassador Zektar sat in the detention cell aboard the human ship Retribution, staring at the simple metal walls and trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. 24 hours ago, he had been one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, a senior member of the Galactic Council with authority over dozens of star systems. Now he was a prisoner of the species he had helped condemn to extinction. The door opened with a soft hiss, and Admiral Sarah Chen entered the cell. She carried 2 cups of what appeared to be some kind of hot beverage and sat down across from him at the small table. "I brought you coffee," she said, sliding 1 cup toward him. "It's a human drink. We thought you might want to experience something from the culture you tried to destroy." Zektar looked at the cup but didn't touch it. "Are you here to gloat about your victory?" "No," Chen replied, taking a sip from her own cup. "I'm here to help you understand what happened and why. Your species will need to learn from this experience if you want to avoid repeating it in the future." Through the cell's small window, Zektar could see the Council's home system. Human ships surrounded every planet, space station and orbital facility, not attacking, just waiting. The blockade was complete and absolute. "Your government surrendered 6 hours ago," Chen informed him. "All Council military forces have been ordered to stand down. The trial proceedings will begin next week." "Trials?" Zektar asked. "For war crimes," Chen explained simply. "The systematic destruction of a planet's civilian population is genocide under galactic law. The individuals responsible for that decision will face justice." Zektar finally reached for the coffee cup, more out of nervousness than thirst. The liquid was bitter but warming. "And what happens to the rest of us?" "That depends on your species," Chen said. "Some council members actively supported the genocide. Others simply went along with the majority decision. A few actually argued against it. Each species will be judged based on their individual actions and choices." She activated a small data pad and showed him a list of names. "These are the council leaders who will face trial for crimes against humanity." "Your name is on this list, Ambassador." Zektar studied the list with growing dread. Nearly half the council's leadership was included, representing 23 different species. What will happen to them, to us? "The same thing that would have happened to human leaders if our positions were reversed," Chen answered. "Justice." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the massive human fleet that had materialized seemingly from nowhere. "Do you know what surprises me most about this war, Ambassador?" "What?" Zektar asked. "How easily it could have been avoided. We offered you everything you claimed to want. Peace, trade, cultural exchange, technological cooperation. We were willing to accept limits on our expansion, restrictions on our activities, even client species status if that's what it took to avoid conflict." Chen turned back to face him. "All you had to do was treat us as equals instead of inferiors. All you had to do was accept that the galaxy was large enough for all of us. Instead, you chose to see our peaceful intentions as weakness and our diplomatic overtures as submission." Zektar set down his coffee cup with trembling hands. We thought you were primitive. Your technology seemed inferior. Your military forces appeared minimal. Your diplomatic behavior suggested pacifism. Because that's what we wanted you to think," Chen said bluntly. "Ambassador, do you really believe that a species capable of interstellar travel would be defenseless? Do you think that beings who could build faster than light ships couldn't also build weapons?" She returned to her seat and leaned forward. "Every piece of intelligence your species gathered about humanity was carefully managed. We showed you our civilian technology, not our military capabilities. We introduced you to our diplomats and traders, not our strategists and soldiers. We demonstrated our desire for peace, not our capacity for war." "Why?" Zektar asked. "Why hide your true strength?" "Because we hoped we wouldn't need it," Chen replied sadly. "We genuinely wanted to share the galaxy peacefully. We thought that if we approached you with open hands instead of closed fists, you would respond in kind. We believed that rational beings could find solutions that benefited everyone." She paused to drink more coffee. "We were wrong about your nature, Ambassador. You interpreted our restraint as inability and our mercy as weakness. You convinced yourselves that because we chose not to threaten you, we were incapable of defending ourselves." The door opened again, and a human security officer entered. "Admiral, the council representatives are ready for transport to the surface." Chen nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant. We'll be down shortly." She turned back to Zektar. "The shuttle will take you to the council chambers, where the trial proceedings will begin. You'll have full legal representation and the opportunity to present your defense. Unlike the population of Earth, you'll receive due process. Zektar stood up slowly, his legs unsteady. Admiral, may I ask you something? Of course. If your species is capable of this level of military coordination, why didn't you simply conquer the galaxy from the beginning? Why attempt diplomacy at all? Chen smiled sadly. Because conquest was never our goal, Ambassador. We wanted neighbors, not subjects. We wanted to explore the galaxy alongside other species, not rule over them. We wanted to learn from your cultures and share our own discoveries. She gestured toward the window and the human fleet beyond. This, she said, indicating the ships and the blockade, is not what we wanted. This is what you forced us to become. The shuttle ride to the Council homeworld was conducted in silence. Zektar stared out at the planet's surface and saw human forces positioned at every major government facility and military installation. The occupation was complete but remarkably restrained. There were no signs of destruction, no evidence of violence against civilian populations. The council chambers had been converted into a courtroom. Representatives from every surviving species sat in the gallery, watching as the proceedings began. Human legal experts had prepared detailed evidence of the decision-making process that led to Earth's destruction, including recorded conversations and classified documents recovered from council databases. As the charges were read aloud, Zektar finally understood the full scope of what had happened. The humans had been recording everything. Every diplomatic meeting, every private conversation, every strategic planning session had been monitored and documented. They had built a complete legal case while simultaneously planning their military response. The first witness called was Ambassador David Harrison, the human diplomat who had delivered Earth's final message. Zektar was shocked to see him alive, having assumed he had died in the planet's destruction. Ambassador Harrison, the human prosecutor began. Please tell the court about the diplomatic efforts made to avoid this conflict. Harrison looked directly at the council representatives as he spoke. For 3 years, humanity made every possible effort to find a peaceful resolution. We offered trade agreements, technology sharing, cultural exchanges, and territorial compromises. We proposed joint scientific expeditions and collaborative exploration projects. We even offered to accept limitations on our expansion in exchange for peaceful coexistence. He paused, his expression sad but resolute. Every offer was rejected. Every compromise was dismissed. Every attempt at finding common ground was interpreted as evidence of weakness. The council made it clear that they viewed any species not under their direct control as a threat that needed to be eliminated. The prosecutor nodded. And what was humanity's response to this rejection? We prepared for the inevitable, Harrison answered simply. While our diplomats continued attempting negotiation, our military forces planned for the war we hoped would never come. When the council chose genocide over diplomacy, we were ready to respond. The trial continued for weeks, with witness after witness documenting the systematic planning that had led to Earth's destruction. But equally detailed was the evidence of humanity's preparation for exactly this scenario. The humans had anticipated every possible council strategy and prepared countermeasures for each one. When the verdicts were finally delivered, Zektar and 18 other council leaders were found guilty of genocide and crimes against humanity. The sentences varied based on individual culpability, but the message was clear. The galaxy had new rules, and those rules would be enforced by beings who understood both the value of peace and the necessity of justice. Admiral Chen addressed the assembled representatives one final time before the court adjourned. The Galactic Council as it existed is dissolved. In its place, we will establish a new federation based on equality, mutual respect, and shared governance. Any species that wishes to participate in galactic civilization will be welcome, provided they accept that all sentient beings have the right to exist and prosper. She looked directly at the convicted leaders. Those who cannot accept these principles will find themselves excluded from the community of civilized worlds. The choice, as always, is yours. As Zektar was led away to begin his sentence, he reflected on the ambassador's words from that final transmission. The humans had tried peace. The council had chosen war. Now everyone would live with the consequences of that choice.